Israel's days are numbered because the International Association of Genocide Scholars just passed a resolution saying that the legal definition of genocide has been met in Gaza. And I was thinking, why don't we read their resolution? Because, for one, it's great to hear these things affirmed by a reputable body. In fact, the world's leading body on these issues of genocide and other atrocities. So let's get into it. The IAGS resolution on the situation in Gaza says, recognizing that since the horrific Hamas-led attack of 7th October 2023, which itself constitutes international crimes, the government of Israel has engaged in systematic and widespread crimes against humanity, war crimes, and genocide, including indiscriminate and deliberate attacks against the civilians and civilian infrastructure, hospitals, homes, commercial buildings, etc., of Gaza, which, according to official UN estimates at the date of this resolution, has killed more than 59,000 adults and children in Gaza. Recognizing that these crimes are estimated to have left many thousands of people buried under the rubble or otherwise inaccessible and most probably dead. Recognizing that this bombing and other violence is estimated to have injured more than 143,000 people, with many maimed. Recognizing that the actions of the Israeli government against Palestinians have included torture, arbitrary detention, and sexual and reproductive violence, deliberate attacks on medical professionals, humanitarian aid workers, and journalists, and the deliberate deprivation of food, water, medicine, and electricity essential to the survival of the population. Recognizing that Israel has forcibly displaced nearly all of the 2.3 million Palestinians, the number's way less now, in the Gaza Strip multiple times and demolished more than 90% of the housing infrastructure in the territory. 90%, imagine that. Recognizing that Israel has destroyed schools, universities, libraries, museums, and archives, all of them essential to the continued existence of the Palestinian collective well-being and identity. Recognizing that Israel has killed or injured more than 50,000 children, and that this destruction of a substantial part of a group constitutes genocide, as emphasized in a joint declaration of intervention in the International Court of Justice case of the Gambia versus Myanmar by 6 countries, Canada, Denmark, France, Germany, and the Netherlands, and the United Kingdom, which states that children form a substantial part of the groups protected by the Genocide Convention, and that the targeting of children provides an indication of the intention to destroy a group as such, at least in part. Children are essential to the survival of any group as such, since the physical destruction of the group is assured where it is unable to regenerate itself. Recognizing that Israeli governmental leaders, war cabinet ministers, and senior army officials have made explicit statements of the intent to destroy, characterizing Palestinians in Gaza as a whole as enemies and human animals, that's a direct quote, and stating the intention of inflicting maximum damage on Gaza, flattening Gaza, and turning Gaza into hell. Recognizing that the Israeli Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu has endorsed the current U.S. president's plan to forcibly expel all Palestinians from the Gaza Strip with no right of return, and what Navi Pillay, the head of the UN Commission of Inquiry on the Occupied Palestinian Territory, has said amounts to ethnic cleansing. Recognizing that the deliberate destruction of agricultural fields, food warehouses, and bakeries, and other violence that prevents food production, in conjunction with denial and restriction of humanitarian aid, indicate the intentional infliction of unlivable conditions resulting in starvation of Palestinians in Gaza. Acknowledging that on the 21st of November 2024, the International Criminal Court issued arrest warrants for Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu and former Defense Minister Yoav Gallant of Israel in the ongoing investigation opened on March 3rd, 2021, of crimes committed on Palestinian territory since June 2014, charging them with crimes identified in the Rome Statute in the Gaza Strip from at least the 8th of October 2023, including the starvation of civilians, intentionally directing attacks against the civilian population, murder, and persecution. Whereas Israel's actions in response to the October 7th attack and subsequent holding of hostages have not only been directed against the Hamas group responsible for these, but have also targeted the entire Gazan population. Acknowledging that the International Court of Justice found in 3 provisional measures order in the case of South Africa versus Israel, January, March, and May 2024, that it is plausible that Israel is committing genocide in its attack in Gaza and ordered Israel to take all measures within its power to prevent and punish the direct and public incitement of genocide and to ensure the provision of humanitarian access to civilians in Gaza. Acknowledging that leading global international law organizations and UN bodies, including Amnesty International, Human Rights Watch, Forensic Architecture, Dawn, B'Tselem, and Physicians for Human Rights, and the Special Reporter on the Situation of Human Rights in the Occupied Palestinian Territories have conducted extensive investigations and issued reports concluding that Israel is committing genocide in Gaza. Acknowledging that a number of Israeli, Palestinian, Jewish, and other scholarly experts working in Holocaust and genocide studies and in international law have concluded that Israeli government and military actions constitute genocide. Acknowledging that international civil society has a responsibility to prevent genocide by encouraging and assisting states to fulfill their obligations under the Genocide Convention to prevent, suppress, and punish genocide. Acknowledging that putative security measures against members of a group are often pretext for mass killing and genocide, as has become in this case. Therefore, the International Association of Genocide Scholars declares that Israel's policies and actions in Gaza meet the legal definition of genocide in Article 2 of the UN Convention for the Prevention and Punishment of the Crime of Genocide in 1948. Declares that Israel's policies and actions in Gaza constitute war crimes and crimes against humanity as defined in international humanitarian law in the Rome Statute of the International Criminal Court. Calls upon the government of Israel to immediately cease all acts that constitute genocide, war crimes, and crimes against humanity against Palestinians in Gaza, including deliberate attacks against and killing of civilians, including children, starvation, deprivation of humanitarian aid, water, fuel, and other items essential to the survival of the population, sexual and reproductive violence, and other forced displacement of the population. Calls upon the government of Israel to comply with the provisional measure orders of the International Court of Justice. Calls upon the state parties of the International Criminal Court to comply with their obligations, cooperate with the court, and surrender any individual suspect to an arrest warrant. Calls upon all states to actively pursue policies to ensure respect for their obligations under international law, including under the Genocide Convention, the Arms Trade Treaty, international humanitarian law with regards to Israel and Palestine, and calls upon the government of Israel and all their UN members to support a process of repair and transitional justice that will afford democracy, freedom, dignity, and security for all people of Gaza. Current as of the 28th of July, 2025, resolution was passed yesterday, August 31st, 2025. So, wow, I'm glad that it has been established by the IAGS that what Israel is doing in Gaza is genocide. And they're basically telling us that we have a legal obligation, countries all around the world have a legal obligation to basically free Palestine. That's what they're saying. We have an obligation to stop genocide. We have to stop Israel. We have to protect the Palestinian people. Free Palestine, baby. You can send this video to someone who's curious what the International Association of Genocide Scholars specifically said. So follow me, share for more. Thank you for Palestine.